Well, hello there. My name is Dr. Philip Alexander, and welcome to the World Revolution podcast. And this is a very special interview with Bianca Spears, an award winning empowerment coach and laughter meditation facilitator, and Stacy Hacket, who is a yoga practitioner and a movement instructor, amongst many other things, an expert in holistic healing. So, with no further ado, enjoy this podcast with these two beautiful goddesses. So, yeah, I wrote up some topics, but yeah, I suppose perhaps talking about what transformation actually is. For me, it's I think I've had to actually uh, do incredible transformations just from the way that I'd been wired since I was a kid, with my family upbringing and their backgrounds and stuff. And sometimes I didn't even realize I was looking at this podcast that I did with you, Bianca, and there's so much growth that I can see that I've gone through. And there's just these things that you just don't see until you become more self-aware, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just chatting about it, and Philip was saying, wow, like we did that podcast a year ago and I've done so much growing since then, like I needed to grow. And I was like, but would you be more disappointed to look back on it and like be like, I'm exactly the same as that a year later? And he was like,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. We're always
Mm.
growing and learning.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. No, I was wondering, yeah, how did you guys, because we all met at the Preston Smiles Alessi Panos Run Bridge experience a year ago. That's how we all met. And yeah, it's funny how the universe just brings people together in different ways. How did you guys get together and work on this retreat that you're creating?
It was pretty. I mean, so yes. So we all met at the bridge experience last October. Bianca and I were actually in the same. So you get split into like these groups. So Bianca and I were in the same group, Raw Bridges, and we then just kept in touch through kind of Facebook. We had a group set up and we all just would jump in and support each other and share what was happening and just keep each other accountable, just have this amazing like support network. And we had been jumping in and out over the past year, and it was almost just like it was the energy, this like energetic pull. And Bianca and I just jumped in like 3 weeks ago or something.
It was
We
a
just
bit more.
jumped on. Yeah,
Yeah, a bit
maybe
more than a month ago, and we just jumped
yeah,
on a call to sort of catch
Yeah,
up with
touch
each
base.
other and see
yeah,
what each other were doing.
uh,
Yeah.
And I've been in the coaching space for years, but I'm leaning more towards the retreat space. And then was telling Stacey a bit about what I was doing because she told me about the radiant flux sessions that she's working on people with, and just the transformations that they're having, how it's moving energy and moving blocked emotion and trauma and shifting that out of the body, and people
wow,
leaving their sessions like,
yeah,
whoa, like what just happened? I feel amazing. Like I feel like I've taken drugs and I haven't had anything. This is epic. Like I'm so light, I'm so free. And I was like goosebumping when Stacey was telling me about this one client that she worked with. And I just was like, hey, so I'm thinking of running this thing at the start of next year for people to really get clear on where they're at, for them to shed the old stuff. And I feel like this could work, like bringing our work together, bringing the intuitive work that I do, bringing the laughter for transformation, bringing the coaching stuff that I do, and
mm,
really blending and meshing it together. And Stacey then, it was her turn for goosebumps,
Yeah.
and she was like, knew this was right, like yes, this is right, let's do it.
I think because we connected, and our energies were so aligned in that 2019 for us has been a hugely transformative year. You know, Bianca being a mum. So it was like this, we were talking about the whole, you know, birth, death, you know, like my father passed away, and it really, really opened my eyes up to holding space for people and transforming through, you know, this destruction and death and this kind of like rebirth. And we just honestly, like the conversation that we were having about transformation, we just it was like electricity. And it's like we have to help other people experience this. You know, Philip, like we've been in that room together, you know, me, you and Bianca, in those kind of energetic spaces where you feel like you're transforming, you know, like moment to moment to moment. And I think that, you know, Bianca and I both felt that we're like, this is what we get to create, you know, in bringing these women together and in having this really safe space for them, to transform, and not transform into something completely different. You know, it's about like remembering who you are and who you have always been, you know, your spirit and your essence, that kind of gets bogged down with the heaviness and, you know, the weight of we kind of sometimes carry the weight of the world on us. And transforming is about, you know, shedding those layers and shedding that weight, and you know, remembering this really light spirit that you are. And the conversation that Bianca and I were having, it was like, I felt light, you know, I felt like we were just like floating, like talking to each other. And we were just so excited to be able to come together to put this retreat in place, so that we can have, you know, other people, other women come along, and, you know, they can feel exactly the same way that we do every day.
Stace, it's the obvious question is, why are you naked?
I was like, I love how we're starting and it's thrown to Stace and there's no acknowledgement of the
I know.
Obvious question. So I went to LA in April. I did the continuation of Preston and Alexi's training in extreme leadership, and like, not to give a lot away, but you do get naked. It's about being vulnerable, and it's about being naked in like every sense of the word, you know. So you're not just naked on the outside. It's about being, you know, completely seen, and about dropping, you know, the masks that we wear, you know, the identities that we show. You know, there's like nothing wrong with that. However, I really, really embraced that. I feel so comfortable just being naked and raw and vulnerable and being seen, you know, and showing myself for who I am. And Bianca and I have jumped on calls, and I've jumped on coaching calls, and I'm like, hashtag gonna be naked. So people just kind of not expect it, but they're like, oh yeah, Stacey's gonna be naked. But you know, it's about being like truly seen and like truly being vulnerable. I mean, what's more vulnerable than you know, not hiding behind, you know, clothing and layers. And you know, it's like, this is me. I'm a goddess, and I'm here to be seen.
Wow.
And I want other people to know that they can feel comfortable in being seen as well.
Yeah. That's actually like, I've always felt that there's this energy about you, which is it's vulnerability. It's trying to, that's what you embody, isn't it? It's that willingness to go there.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it until, you know, I've had amazing people mirror it back to me. And when I was in the trainings in LA, so many people that I was doing the course with said exactly the same thing. You know, they're like, there's just this there's this, you know, you have this ability to allow people to be vulnerable, you know, because you show up so vulnerably and you go there like so deeply. And you know, I've always said, and I've always felt this since I was young, you know, there's so much strength in vulnerability, you know, for the masculine, for, you know, for men, for women. You know, it's not a weakness to be vulnerable. You know, it's not weak to cry. It's not weak to show that, you know, you're going through something. There's so much strength and courage in being able to be open and to express that. And it allows other people to know that it's safe for them to do the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for witnessing that.
Oh, yeah. And Bianca, yeah, just bringing you into the conversation again. Yeah, I actually neglected to formally introduce you guys, so that's
Everyone with my nakedness.
Yes, yeah. So Bianca, you're an award-winning empowerment coach and author of a best-selling book, The World Is Yours: 8 Steps to Achieving Everything You Want, which has actually got coverage through CBS, International Business Times, Fox News, Star Tribunal, or Star Tribune, I should say. Yeah, and I know you've had an incredible journey as well. Would you like to share a little bit about how you transformed your life? Because you had a corporate background, and then you left that work to follow something that was more meaningful for you.
Yeah. So I guess I grew up being told what a lot of us are told, like work hard, get a good job, pay the bills, buy a house, follow that, you know, ideal pathway of life as it's, you know, painted for us in the movies and in society, until recently. Rise of the entrepreneur, what up? But, you know, that's kind of what I thought I needed to do. And so I worked really hard. I was someone who never took sick days, never, you know, my parents were very good, well, still are honest, hardworking people. And I, yeah, got myself into a lot of cool jobs. Ended up in corporate in Melbourne, working a sales job, really love sales. But I was kind of, and I was comfy, like I was in a good space. My partner was here in Sydney. I was in Melbourne. I could fly and see him once a month. I could go out and eat whatever I wanted. Money was no problem for me. Was saving money without even trying. Like, well paid, enjoying my job, doing well at it, making friends, and loving the Melbourne life. And it was when I went to a weekend workshop or transformation retreat or whatever you want to call it. It was like a 2-day workshop. And that really opened my eyes, because while I was in the corporate world, I was also very big on living life for me. So I was also like, I would leave a job and go traveling and do what I wanted. And then I would come back to the only system I knew and really just work really hard again, save the money again, and then go out and spend all the money and come back broke. And that was kind of the cycle I was living. But a lot of people were looking at it and going, oh my God, like you're so lucky, you travel all the time. And I'm like, I wish I could, was what they would say. And I'm like, well, you can follow what I do and just get a job, save your money, you know, stop blowing all your money on every weekend or doing whatever you're doing, buying shoes and handbags and that kind of stuff, and allocate some money towards travel and book the flights and go. Like, that's it. That's as simple as it was for me. And I couldn't see how people weren't following their heart. That really confused me as to why they have money coming in, but they're upset with what they're doing. They don't like their job, whatever it is. I couldn't really wrap my head around that. Anyway, this workshop really that I went to really deepened everything, because I understood now how the unconscious mind worked, how our ego and soul play their different roles, and how we are integrated beings. And a lot of people are not acknowledging their fears and their worries and their doubts. They're not actually acknowledging them. They're trying to stuff them down and pretend they don't exist. And at the same time, they've got all these hopes and dreams and big aspirations that they don't think they can do. So they're stuffing them down as well. And then they're living this life where they're just trying to stuff everything down and numb themselves out and trying to make do and settle, rather than really living into their truth.
Right.
So what I understood from that workshop was that we can create anything, which anyone who follows me, you guys have known me for a year, you've probably heard me say it 8,000 times, like we are creating everything through our thoughts, through our actions, through our energy. And I've only learned more and more and more about this over the years. So I knew that while I had a good life and I could do what I wanted with the money that I was earning, I didn't want to do that forever. I knew I wanted to move to Sydney to be with my partner. And so it was a bit of a catalyst for change, and to be like, okay, here's a chance where I'm going to have to start something new because I'm moving to a different state. Do I want to go in the corporate world and work my way up and get my client base going again in sales? Or do I want to actually do something for me? Like, do I want to explore? And I had no idea what that looked like. And it took me on a journey of so many different passions and so many different things, from travel photography and journalism to network marketing, and to then moving more into the coaching space and really finding my groove there after a lot of crap, to be honest. A lot of being broke, a lot of being stressed out, a total identity crisis of like, who am I? What is this all about? Like, I've been through some stuff on the way here, to a point where, I figured the whole online business coaching thing out, and then was able to then start helping other coaches, healers, entrepreneurs to really start their businesses online and create that freedom life that I think a lot of us realize now is possible, but we just don't know how to do it. So I've been through the crap to go, okay, here's some shortcuts. Like, I've spent $50,000 on personal development and on courses and on this and on that. And this is what I struggled with when I was starting, and I know exactly where you're at. So that's where I've come to this space, and I'm really grateful that I have, of being in a position that I am. I work from home. I live in paradise. You guys know I live in a national park where it's water access.
I did not
only.
know that.
Oh, you didn't?
No. Wow.
Okay.
You live in a national park, right?
Yeah, so I live in a national park. We have wallabies cruising through our yard.
Wow.
We have a lyrebird. I always used to go camping and be like, I so want to see a lyrebird, like, just more than just running across the road when we're driving in the car. Like, I really want to see a lyrebird. It was basically living in our yard when we moved here last year, and I see it all the time. And now I have a son who's nearly 11 years old, and I get to be with him at home, and I get to do the things that I want to do from home. I can choose when I work. I can choose when I not. I've chosen to not work most of this year because I have that freedom to be able to be with him. And that's, I think, what everyone wants, is more time with their friends, their family, their loved ones, and to be able to do and be where they want to be in the world. So that's my story. That's me.
Yeah, it's very much the entrepreneur's journey, I would say. This is what, it's really cool. And you've done some incredible work with some influential people as well, haven't you? People like Regan Hillier and Alexi as well. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about World Transformation Organization. That's something that I'm really passionate about. I actually did me and Bianca, we did on Facebook Live about, I had this calling. So everything that I do is just based on, what my soul tells me to do. I believe that my soul came here to enlighten the world just by being me, and just following what that might look like is fighting for people's rights and injustices. So we did this Facebook Live, which was all about, what are the things that are wrong in this world, and what are the things that we could do to change it. And I wanted to create a world movement. But it turned out as well that a couple of years ago, I met this guy, Harinder Paul, who's he's an acquaintance of my cousin in the UK. And we just met up, and he was telling me he had this idea that he wanted to go to India and start a school there in the middle of a slum and really break people's paradigms. Because like, I know that if you're stuck in a certain perception to the way that you're seeing the world, it's really hard to break out of it unless you're aware of that. And so you could imagine like people living in really horrible conditions in some of these places, not just in India, but all around the world, in South America, in Africa. And yeah, it would be almost impossible to even conceive of an idea where a person could even just get a day-to-day job, you know, and to earn a normal living of some sort, which would be below even our standards. So he was really passionate about that, and he wanted to create this event. And we brainstormed this idea on the 5th of April 2018 called World Transformation Day. And we just told people in our networks, and it just spread like wildfire. I probably shouldn't have used that word because of what's happening in Sydney. Apologies. It spread everywhere around the world, and thousands of people jumped on board, and it's continually growing. Now we're aiming to get 1 million people to do something on World Transformation Day. So we've got this group set up, getting 1,000 entrepreneurs to join the group, and to task 10 people to just do something empowering on the day. Just spread that message of that, you know, we're empowered beings, that we could have and do whatever we want. And yeah, so I shared with you guys a video of this young girl in the school in Kalkaji, and she talked about how her sister was forced into marriage, and she was being abused by her husband. Husband also being very much older than her, and cases like this is far too common in the subcontinent. And Stace, you also mentioned like this is something that rang true to your heart too. Yeah, how did you guys? How does that what's going on there and what I shared? How did that resonate with you guys?
Yeah, so I mentioned after watching the video and just reading up a little bit more about World Transformation Organization, how it really hit home for me. I grew up, you know, I could just see so many similarities. You know, obviously there are like definite, you know, there are definite extreme cases. You know, there's like 65 million people that live in the slums in India, you know, and it's like lower you know, socioeconomic like situation that they're in, and the things that they're exposed to, you know, like drinking and violence and poverty and rapes. And but where I grew up, you know, I grew up in Scotland, and I was definitely, you know, in a lower socioeconomic situation. Both my parents, like alcoholics, quite violent, abusive. We grew up definitely, you know, with like lesser money, exposed to a lot of the same things, you know, exposed to, yeah, violence. I dealt with like sexual trauma when I was in my teens. It really sent me on this spiral of, you know, what you were saying, like when you're in that situation, you can't really see worth, you know, within yourself, and you can't really see that there are other opportunities because it's not something that you're exposed to. So it really struck a chord with me. And definitely, you know, I mean, there's a rape that occurs in India like every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and dealing with that for me from the age of 15, it was a trajectory. You know, it changed my life. You know, it sent me on an even kind of deeper spiral of abusing alcohol and drugs, and you know, just kind of doing whatever I could to feel something different than what I was feeling, which was, you know, this sense of like hopelessness and this sense of self-hate. Like I like really hated myself because I felt like the situation that I was in was my fault. So, you know, and you imagine 65 million people who are in these slums who might be feeling, you know, much of the same. You know, it's such a polarizing feeling. And if you don't have people that are around you that are, you know, helping you develop and showing you that there is a different way, that you can feel, you know, that you can love yourself, that you're worthy, that, you know, you matter. Yeah, I was in tears yesterday watching that video, and just was like, man, if one person, you know, can be the ripple effect, if one person can share, and, you know, we have that ripple effect, we have the power to change this. Like, this shouldn't be happening now. You know, I quit drinking. I've been sober for like over 10 years. You know, haven't touched drugs for like 11, have been on this journey of self-development and learning to really love myself. But, you know, it was because I had people around me that showed me, you know, that I was worthy. So, you know, the World Transformation Organization, that there are people like you, Philip, that there are people like your friends that are going into those areas, into those situations, and, you know, they're changing it like from the ground up, and they're affecting people, they're changing people's lives. It's freaking amazing. And it's something that I want to be a part of. You know, and it shouldn't take 10 years for that change to happen.
No.
You know, it can happen like right now, you know.
Yeah.
As Bianca was saying, it's like it's a choice. It's a choice that we all have. And, you know, things can just change like in the moment, and yeah, we all have the power to do something about it. So
yeah, there's something that you mentioned, you know, blaming oneself for things that have happened in their life. Yeah, would you mind like expanding on that? Like, why do we blame ourselves when something traumatic happens?
Yeah, isn't it funny that we turn inwards? You know, it's almost like it's so much easier to blame. I mean, for me anyway, I guess I had this kind of resentment for my parents to a point, because, you know, they were the ones that I looked to, that were meant to, you know, care for me and love me unconditionally. And, you know, it definitely affected me, the hurts and the traumas that they were experiencing, you know, they were passing it on to me. And from a very young age, I kind of knew, you know, I was saying at like 7 or 8, you know, like, oh, my parents are only human, and, you know, they can only do their best. Yeah, you know, I mean, I would have like, because we were estranged from my mum for a while. When I was like 9 or 10, we moved to Australia with my dad as a single parent, you know, and I had my mum ringing me, telling me that she was going to kill herself, and, you know, that like really traumatic things that, you know, a 9-year-old probably shouldn't be hearing. But I was like, you know, oh, she's hurting, and, you know, I was like calling her bluff out, but I never blamed them as much as I blamed myself. And I think that when, so I was 15, when I was raped by a neighbour who, I was in Scotland, who was also a drug dealer. And for me, that was something that I hadn't really acknowledged until last year when we did this course together. Something that I buried like so deep, but I blamed myself for it. You know, even in the moment that it was happening, it's almost like I disassociated. You know, I took myself out of my body, and I had a voice in my head that was like, "Well, this is your fault." You know, you were drinking, and you know, you were asking for it, and you know, you're a slut, and you're, you know, all of these things that because you're in a situation where you're not being unconditionally loved, you know, you're not being shown that you're really worthy of love, and that for me was just, it was like a validation of well, you know, it's all true. You know, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not, you know, these are things that you fundamentally, I mean, I did in my upbringing, that was my default setting. You know, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not lovable. So, you know, to blame myself was just, it was like a default mechanism, you know, and it's just easy to go to that place of, you know, you're just not doing anything right, you're not lovable, you're not worthy, you're not good enough. You know, how often do we think, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough to do that. You know, who am I to do, who am I to go and do that? You know, and there's an amazing quote, I think it's by Marianne Williamson, and she quotes, you know, who are you not to do that? You know, we get taught so much that, you know, like kind of stay small, and especially in Australia, especially in, you know, like it's like what is it? It's like the tall poppy thing.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Don't shine so bright, you know,
Yeah.
just stay in your area, you know, don't, it's like, well, we're all like these amazing spirits, and we just, who are we not to shine? Like, who are we not to do this? Who are we not to share our dreams and our gifts and our medicine and our love? But, you know, we get taught from such a young age. And I guess when you're in a like traumatic kind of situation where there's not lots of love, it's not the norm. It's not the norm to you know, to love yourself, to know how to care for yourself, to shine bright, to be big. So, you know, it's easier and it feels more natural to go to that place of blame. And yeah, that's definitely where I navigated my life for such a long time. From the outset, I looked so confident, and you know, I definitely had self-confidence, but I had no self-esteem. You know, and the drugs and the alcohol and the partying and everything that I was doing was just it was an escape from that, because I didn't know how to love myself, you know, and no one had ever taught me, you know. And I think that, yeah, definitely through through yoga and meditation and self-development, I had to teach myself, you know, how to love myself. So it's so fundamental that in, you know, the World Organization, in the academy, that's what they're teaching, not just the children, but they're teaching the parents, you know, because it's a generational thing for sure. I don't think that, I mean, I know that my mum like doesn't know how to love herself. I know that my dad really struggled with it, you know, that it's a generational thing, that, you know, people are taught this. Like, it should be just a fundamental thing, you know. We maybe should teach it at schools, like self-love, self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I think World Transformation Organization is so good, because since I did that workshop where I finally like went, oh, this is how it all works, this is how our brain works, our emotions, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's the question that screamed within my mind, is like, why are we not learning this in schools?
Yeah.
Why are people not being taught this? We're being taught algebra, we're being taught ancient history, how is that affecting our day-to-day lives versus learning how to deal with our emotions, which we deal with every single day, our own thoughts, which we deal with every single day. And that's where I think it's really empowering, as Stace just said, to educate the community, because I know myself for a long time I've wanted to work with kids, but how am I going to work with kids if they do a workshop and they think it's great, the best thing ever, but then they go home and their parents don't know what they've done, they don't know how to support them in it, and they just go into their normal habits and patterns and ways of speaking and ways of thinking. So it's really important to educate the whole community so they're all on the same page. They all get how it works, and they all get that there is an option, there is a different way, so that they can support each other and boost each other up as well, not just go, that's ridiculous, you're never going to be able to do that. Like, do you know where you coming from? Like, we live in a slum. To be able to shine that light for the whole community and go, there is a different way. There are options for every single person. That's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah. There needs to be, for some reason, mindfulness, and not even that, but emotional intelligence, emotional healing, this kind of work is not implemented in schools. Perhaps it's been 20 years since I've been at school now. But yeah, there needs to be more of this as to be held in equal importance as other subjects as well. That's not to say that those other subjects aren't important too. I was having a discussion with this theologist a couple of weeks ago, and he's a mathematician, and he was saying that there's you could understand the universe through mathematics, you know. So I suppose, you know, there's good in everything, but there's probably more of a weight towards the logical side of things, and what makes sense for people. And just listening to you guys speak as well, like you both are empowered women in different ways. I think you guys are incredible role models for people. And what came to my mind was this image of Mary Magdalene, who's this embodiment of the embodiment of a goddess that is an empowered woman, but had to go through all of these difficulties and judgments from people, and also abuse as well. Yeah,
getting like goosebumps. I've been doing a bit of reading on Mary Magdalene. It's so funny that you bring that up, but I mean, as women anyway, you know, I mean, there's so much conversation at the moment as well about, you know, like the masculine and the feminine, and but I think, you know, as women, there's this definite there's this like empowered uprising, you know, of the feminine, and women, like, you know, taking back this ownership of their bodies, and, you know, just really like empowering themselves, because as women, you know, and not saying that, you know, men like don't have this as well, but definitely as women, you know, we get quite a lot of like labels put onto us, you know, and I mean, I know that like Bianca and I have spoken about, and she can probably go into a lot more detail with this, but, you know, as being a mum, you know, once you become a mum, you know, that's a title that you wear for life, you know, and it's not just something that you do, you know, it really is like kind of something that you become and that you embody. But then how often do we, and I know that, like, you know, within like coaching programs and just knowing, like, especially, you know, single mums or mums generally tend to, they then put their children like before themselves, you know, or they forget to care for themselves. They forget what it is to love themselves. It's almost like they kind of go through this process of like forgetting kind of who they fundamentally are, you know, and I mean, I can't really speak for that because I, you know, don't have children, but I see it, and I see it so prevalently. And, you know, and a part of the retreat as well, that, you know, what we want to be able to offer, you know, not just for mums, but especially because, you know, they don't really put themselves at the forefront. And if you're not filling up your own cup, if you're not loving yourself, then, you know, you just don't have that much like to give back. You end up burning yourself out. You end up running on empty. You know, but so many women do it. You know, they put themselves behind, you know, helping other people and you know, caring for others. They forget what it is to love themselves. And within the retreat, you know, we want people, and we want women to be able to, you know, shed those masks and shed those layers and shed what society like deems that you should fucking be, and just remember what it is to be yourself. And yeah, like we're all goddesses, you know. I mean, even the masculine, like you have that goddess within you, but you know, for women, you know, embracing the goddess. And like I've been doing so much work on it, you know, over the past year, and you know, confidently like sitting in my goddess. You know, to be a woman is to be, you know, it's a powerful thing. Like the feminine is such a nurturing energy, but we have got so much power. We hold the power of life within us. You know, we have life force energy, you know, within our womb. Like we're creation. You know, and to be able to embody that is, and channel it is, it's a pretty special gift to have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And not only a gift to yourself as the woman going through the transformation or honoring yourself or whatever it is, but like we were talking about before, like there's a ripple effect, right? And the problem with people not honoring themselves, this is men and women, is if you're not honoring yourself and you're not putting yourself first, what are your friends then doing? What are your family then doing? What are your children looking up and seeing? Oh, I need to become an adult so I can care for the kids and put my own dreams and goals last and not live into the life that I want to do. Even though I'm totally capable of it, I need to dull that down. I need to make myself small and all these things that we've talked about. Whereas if you can be even just one person in your community, in your group, in your family, in your circle of friends, whatever it is, who's like, hey, I'm doing life for me. Like I said, I was in the corporate world. People were 9 to 5 and all my friends were doing whatever they're doing in their early 20s, going out partying. And I'm like, I'm going to live for me. I want to travel the world. I want to do this. And that people are like, oh, I want to do that. How can I do that? And it's setting that example for yourself, but also for the people around you. And I really love to look at life like that. Like we are writing the story of our life every single day. Whatever we're doing, that becomes tomorrow's history, like, right? So regardless of what you do, if you think it counts, it doesn't count. When your dying day comes, like, are you going to be happy with what you've done? And what are people going to say about you? Like, how have you influenced the world? How have you given back? What change have you created in the world? Even if it's just through smiling at a stranger on a bus every single day, what have you done to really shine your light in this world? And that's something that's just so important. And again, I just think it's great that you guys are also going into, you know, communities where there's not even this one person, right? There's not even one person shining their light because they're too busy in survival mode. And getting that whole community going and starting to shine, that's incredible. That's what it's about.
I'd like to ask you guys about Retreat 2020. So that's the retreat that you're holding in January on the 10th and 12th, which is a 3-day immersion in Bondi. It looks amazing. Would you guys like to share a bit about what you'll be offering to people?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, honestly, I just like get so excited just like even thinking about it. I don't even know if I can put it into words. Yeah, so I'll say a little bit. We've come together. Bianca is just like such an amazingly powerful person, coach. You know, we're bringing together, like, as you can see, we both have, you know, this beautiful dynamic. We are coming together for 3 days. in Bondi. We have a beautiful villa in Bondi in New South Wales. So it's January 10th to 12th, offering this just amazing, empowered, transformational retreat for 10 women. So we have 10 spots available, and it's really, like we were saying, you know, it's about remembering who you are. It's about releasing all of the, you know, stories, the limiting self-beliefs, the heaviness and the weight that has been maybe holding you back. And it is about, you know, reigniting this, just going into 2020, like this new decade, reigniting this fire within yourself for life. You know, through, like, we're going to be doing so many different, using so many different modalities to get people to that place, but it's about creating this amazingly safe, supportive community of women where they can come into this house and just, you know, and be held by us, be held by each other, and be held by themselves, you know, to remember that they're truly fucking empowered and that they get to go through the next decade from that place. You know, we've been doing so much self-development, soul-searching, like learning, teaching over the past decade. And I know that we've spoken about it, you know, that's what we want to bring into this retreat, is everything that we've learned and all of our growth and all of our transformation is what we're going to be passing on to these women so that they can take that and then they can live the next 10 years of their life from that place, you know, and coming from a place of, because personal development can be really serious, you know, like self-development, spirituality, you know, it can be so serious, and it just doesn't have to be, you know, like as Bianca was saying, you know, smiling at someone, like laughing, like being naked, you know, dancing, like coming from this place of fun and joy and play. We forget that that's what life's about, you know. Kids are like so onto it, you know. A 7-year-old laughs like 300 times a day.
Really?
Like I laugh quite a lot, but I want to laugh 300 times a day. I mean, imagine what you're like.
Yeah.
So that's fundamentally that's kind of what it is. But I'll pass it to Bianca, and she can go into a bit more detail as well.
I think she's nailed it. That's what it's about. I see it as a bit of a cocoon. I love going on retreats because you're there, you're in this space, even like we were in Melbourne, but even better than that, because we don't have to find an Uber out of there, go get our accommodation, find dinner. No, everything's going to be in-house. You're in this beautiful space. You can go to your room. You can chill out in the break times. You can, you know, have your food taken care of, and you can switch off your mind from regular life, not in the way of escaping, but in a way of like taking this time to restore, reset, rejuvenate, and really remember. It's such a big part of what this is about. It's Stace was mentioning how personal development and spirituality can be so serious. It can also be so such a like I remember this guy on a coaching call once saying this term, and I didn't know what it meant, but he said it, gaslighting. And it's basically making people think that there's something wrong with them, right? There's nothing wrong with any of us, right? There's stuff to work on. There's stuff that we can change if we want to, or we can leave it the same. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken. There's nothing to fix. There's things that we can shed. There's things that we can choose to keep. And I think that's what it's about as well. It's about, what do you want? Do you want to hold on to that? Do you want to keep this? Do you want to remain in that certain situation or that job, or that keep that label that you've got going on? Or do you want to shift and change it?
Yeah.
And it's about peeling back some layers to truly remember who you are, and that spirit, that essence, that fire that Stace was talking about before, and coming out of there like, yeah, this is it, this is me. And really feeling that, and having that community around you to support you as well, the other women that are going to be there. Family, just like Stace and I have for the last year, where we're supported, we're talking to each other, and now collaborating. I know Stace ran some workshops earlier in there. People from that bridge experience were there. I know Philip and I have done podcasts together. Like having those people who you're connected with who are on the same path, who get the essence of you more than even some of your friends and family do.
Yeah.
And truly like on that journey with you and have your back no matter what. So
wow.
I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I feel that. Would you guys mind sharing some things that you'll be doing at the retreat? Bianca, I know you're a laughter yoga facilitator, and Stace, you do a lot of dance therapy and music therapy. I'd love to hear some of those things that you'd be offering.
Yeah. So, I mean, Bianca and I were talking about, the offerings that we could have, daily, and it's from the Friday to the Sunday. But we were like, oh my gosh, there's so much that we could offer, that we're like, we could do this for like a week and a half. We could have like a 10-day retreat, which, stay tuned, like we will probably one next year, like later on in the year. However, we so it's going to consist of amongst other things, so I'm also a yoga instructor, so we're going to be doing different flows, so looking at different yogic like teachings and learnings, so not just the asana flow. We're going to be looking at like so it'd be like bhakti yoga, so it'd be like yoga of devotion, so we'll be like singing through our bodies and connecting back to our energetic centers. Wow. So I use a lot of in my so Bianca mentioned I do these radiant flux sessions, which is all about igniting this spark of energy. So it takes people through a session where, we do breath work, we do a yoga flow, there's like Reiki energetic healing, there's the dance therapy. It's a somatic release, looking at like toning vocally, so using our own throats, our own sound, our own healing energy to heal ourselves within the bodies. I know for a lot of mums, for a lot of women, they've kind of lost their ability to speak their truth. It's a lot of like what silences us. It's a lot of what, brings the energy, this like kind of traumatic energy. It goes within our bodies and it imprints on our cells, like at a cellular level. It's this trauma of like not being able to speak and empower yourself. And through this vocal toning and vocal healing, you holistically like heal yourself with the sound of your own voice. It's freaking amazing. And then you're able to dance that out. So again, it's like this energetic release. You get to shake it and dance it out and move through the energy. So it's not just going to be about talking, and where like a lot of I guess retreats and things that I've been to as well, it's been about like sitting down and talking about it a lot, and we are going to do that as well, but there's something that can be said about actually physically moving energy through your body, and that's a lot of what we're going to be doing. But I know that I kind of just want to be able to sit and work through things with Bianca, because she's such a powerful.
She is, isn't she?
Yeah, so
incredibly humble too.
I'm like, what? I'm like, teach me too. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm basically the same with Stacey's work. I cannot wait to experience what we've got planned from her side of things as well.
Yeah.
So yes, I use laughter yoga and particularly laughter wellness, which is a slightly different modality. Mm-hmm. I've also done a program called Laughnosis, which combined hypnosis and laughter for deep transformation. So planting seeds for like positive change in the unconscious mind, because laughter really opens us up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, I can't meditate. And in a laughter wellness session, there's always a laughter meditation at the end. And a laughter meditation, once you've laughed for a certain period of time, like more than 10 minutes, you have so many benefits. I need another hour to talk about them on a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social level. But one thing that happens is that, the critical faculty, which is like the gateway to the unconscious mind, is lowered. It's just like dropped.
Yeah.
And the way that I can explain it is like people seek when they're meditating to find the gap, which is the gap between thoughts, basically. And the idea when you're meditating is to stretch that as long as possible. So you're in this zone where there's no thought, there's just space.
Yeah.
That is so easily achieved through laughter for me. Like, I know I've been there through traditional meditation, but it's very difficult for me. Whereas I almost always get there if I do a full hour laughter session. I almost always go to this space where I'm like, oh my God, my head's just open. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And that's where we can really plant seeds for transformation.
Right.
A lot of the practices that I've picked up through the laughter industry, if you will, and the laughter practices that I do, I now use in transformation and in coaching because they are so powerful, and because they're not just working with the mind, but like Stacy said, they're working with the body. We're releasing energy, we're moving things through like cellular structures and shifting and morphing the brain as well, rewiring the unconscious mind, which is a big part of what I do.
Yeah.
And identity is a really big thing that I said Stacy has to be a part of this as well. It's a huge part of the work that I do. Anyone who's done programs with me, anyone who's worked with me one-on-one, even if it's just for one session, we're typically going into their identity and these labels, how they're defining themselves. I am a person who does such and such, and I'm not a person who does that, is a really basic way to explain what your identity is. It's like, oh, I'm not someone who flies first class, or I couldn't go to that restaurant, it's too fancy for me, or I'm someone who gets on stage and rocks it. Like, we all have these different things that, I do this when I'm having sex, but I don't do that, right? We all have these different boundaries, these different labels, these different ideas of who we are and how we can show up in the world. And it's a big, big thing for me to work with people on, because that limits or accelerates where we're going in the world and defines the direction that we're traveling in as well. Because if you don't think that you can get a job and earn $100,000 a year, you're not even going to apply for the damn job, right? You're just not going to go there. It's as simple as that. You do not see yourself in that room. You're not even going to put your resume in the ring to be chosen. So that's a really basic example, but that's basically how it plays into our lives on a really fundamental level.
And I think just to follow on from that as well, like speaking about the energy, if that's the energy that you're giving out there, you know, if that's the energetic frequency that you're vibrating at, that's what you're going to be receiving back. You know, so changing up that energetic vibrational frequency, you know, and then that's just, it's so key. And like for me, definitely, you know, doing like a lot of energetic work, you know, vibrating on this frequency of, you know, like openness and possibility, and you know, what you kind of give out there is just what you receive back. And it's definitely with the people that I've worked with, and speaking to Bianca about it as well, you know, the laughter, like wellness, that's a changing of a vibrational frequency, you know, within the body, and what you're radiating out there into the energy of the universe. You know, it's super transformative, and it's so amazing. And you know, I've seen it change people like in an instant. And for us to be able to work with people on that level over 3 days, man, like I don't even know what is going to happen. Like on the Sunday, people were just going to be like floating out of that villa. But just it's going to be amazing.
It sounds incredible. I wish I could be a part of it, but I might put on a wig or something just
Really
inconspicuously.
embody your goddess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining me on this podcast. And I really would love to partner with you guys in the future in some way that we could spread our messages out there and really empower women, transform the world. For more information on Retreat 2020, I'll provide the link underneath this podcast, but it's at www.biancaspears.com/retreat. And also I encourage people watching this podcast, if they feel inclined to donate and give generously to the Kalkaji Slum in Delhi.
Yeah.
Yeah, the vision of World Transformation Organization is to develop personal development schools and offering life coaching, yoga and meditation, really changing people's paradigms in impoverished areas around the globe. At the moment, we have one academy in Delhi. We want to set up a few more in India. And also here in Australia too. I'm looking to start one up in Melbourne. So anyone that can donate, it would be great. I'll put the link below for that as well. Is there anything else that we might have not discussed, or anything that's on your hearts that you'd like to share before we close the podcast?
Well, I think also just for the World Transformation Academy, from what I've read and from what I saw from the video that you shared, and I mean, if you don't have that link for the video in there, in this podcast, I think you should definitely put it in there so that people can like find out more about it. It was it costs them £1,000 a month to run this academy in Delhi, which I mean is $2,000. You know, it's $500 a week. You know, and it's changing so many people's lives, and it's such a fundamental part of change in the world. You know, $500 a week, I mean, it's so unbelievably like mind-blowing that it is that little. You know, and I know that they want to be, as you said, like opening up so many of these academies like worldwide in impoverished areas. Like people just please, you know, donate whatever you can. And if it's not money, then I'm sure like donating time and spreading the word about it. And I know for one, you know, I'm like completely on board and want to help out with whatever in the future. You know, I know that Bianca would, it's something that is, it's just such an amazing cause. And I really just want to acknowledge you, Philip. You know, you're such a beautiful soul. And whenever I'm around you, I can feel that, it's just your calling. You know, I know that each and every one of us, it's our higher calling, you know, it's our spirit that is calling us to make a change. You know, and even if it's just changing one person and then there's that ripple effect, we're all here to help change the world. You know, and it might sound cliched, but you know, it's I just really acknowledge you, and I acknowledge Bianca. I am blessed to be surrounded by people that hold me to my highest, and who I see making a change in the world. It inspires me. It aspires me just to do the same. So I love you both so much. It's been the most amazing opportunity to like just sit here and talk to you on this Sunday morning in the nude.
Yes.
I mean, what more could a girl want?
Of course. I love you too, Stace. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love you, Stace. I love you, Philip. And I just want to also, thank you for inviting us to be a part of this and opening up our eyes to what's going on with WTO as well, because I'm really excited. Like, I'm ready to chat to you offline about like being part of it, how can I run a training, or like what can I do to impart some of the knowledge that I have and really share what I know to create that ripple effect across the world as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just encourage others to also like ask yourself if that's something that you want to be part of. Sometimes we think on social media, oh, I don't want to share it, I don't want to be one of those people. What if you just shared it, and like if Philip never shared it with us, we never would have known about it. And it's such an amazing thing. And you know, people can read what they want to read on your wall, like. And if you're someone who's working in the transformative space, if you can share some knowledge, like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not get on board?
I'd like to add, like, you know, I was in that whole space of I want to be a transformational coach. And then I just felt like it wasn't fulfilling enough because I was just doing it for myself. And then ultimately, what it came down to for me was it's really just being able to see yourself in others that, you know, perhaps they, you know, I'm always thinking about, you know, what's going wrong in my life. Not always, I used to. You know, and then when you see what other people are going through around the world, it's really insignificant. And so really dedicating oneself to that kind of work is what ultimately for me lights me up. So that's probably why I do it. But yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you, love you heaps, and look forward to collaborating further.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's end this podcast. Thank you for watching, and wish you guys lots of love all over the world and transform people's lives.